Hello, let's try that again. So this is going to be probably slightly longer video than usual, unfortunately, but it is about completing the final review and the final portfolio. So I'm going to mention a number of elements about that, hence the slightly longer duration. So this is what I hope to talk about. Some of this, of course, is just updating or repetition. Apologies for that, but I thought it might be useful to have it all in one place. So I'll say a little bit about the assessed interviews, not a great deal. Um, More about the expectations for the portfolio submission, a little bit about reflection on practice element, which you've been doing, and the Viva. So that's the aim today. I still, coming to the end of working with you for the first year, see the experience, skills, understanding, enthusiasm, and of course the inevitable challenges. It's a big transition, but you've nearly made it to the end of the first year, so well done. Um, New learning, sometimes new teams, return to learning, assignments. Oh my word, how do we cope with all of this? But apparently you do. There have been challenges. Again, I can only apologize for making many changes, but in actual fact, it's less work and less is required for your final portfolios. But it would have been infinitely preferable to have made that at the start of the year. Fortunately, that wasn't possible. Now, mentors may also be seeing this video and perhaps be seeing some of the information for the first time. Mentors, the real job here for you, as it were, is about completing the final review with the apprentice, and the rest of it may give you some context about what's going on, but those are the sections that will be particularly useful to you. As you can see, everybody, as you all know, have passed the assessed interview, and you have the communication skills at the RDP level. And coming to the end of the first year, you can find those feedback and links to recording on Canvas. They're all there. You can click on the link to the recording, and there's a brief paragraph for feedback. That will close in the not too distant future because I need to close it to enable people to submit their portfolios, but it'll certainly be there for the next 2 or 3 weeks. That's part of your portfolio submission. The PLE feedback is included in the recording. Now, we were going to ask you to do brief reflection on that, but we kind of thought, no, let's not do that. You could record your thoughts in the index of evidence or anywhere else you feel like, for example, in your reflections, it might be helpful. And I've noticed some people have mentioned this in their reflections, but we're not going to ask you to do a separate piece of work. Kind of thought it's confusing already. Don't add anything to it. I suppose, as a general kind of theory, it's good to have feedback from everybody, mentors, apprentices, and so on and so forth. And you will have opportunities to do that as both apprentices and mentors. Mentors will be sending you out a survey over the summer weeks. So if you have anything to say, we'd be really interested in hearing your thoughts, impressions, reflections, whatever they may be. For the mentors, we have a number of different ways of you giving feedback. I think some of you completed the module evaluation questionnaire that would have got sent to you. I'm going to ask you to do that again. And there are student voice meetings. Your representative, she kind of spoke for you with that very effectively. And there will be ongoing opportunities. So just to kind of make that point in passing, because really what we want to talk about are the assignments and how do you put these things together. Well, first of all, where are we? So you've done transitions in social work, hooray. You've done introduction to law, policy and ethics, hooray. That's been submitted, grades released, and there is one more, which is due, in fact, at time of recording, in about a week. So I'm sure your focus is going to be quite intently on that. After that, you've just got this module, the on-the-job learning module to do, the portfolio due on the 16th of June, and the Viva, the 24th and 25th. But in actual fact, they're all going to be on the 25th because you'll submit a recording You won't be doing a live Viva change, which I think many people will welcome. So what goes in the portfolio? Well, you've kind of done half it already. You've done the confidentiality statement, really as part of the portfolio template. You just have to add a signature. You've done journey into social work. Yes, very well done. Assessed interview with the PLE. Yeah, and feedback, all of that, as I said earlier. And then these are the elements you'll be working on. Now, I've read 36 drafts, so I'm guessing that most of you have had a go with the reflection and practice. Please act on the feedback. It'll help you do a better essay. The index of evidence is supposed to be a rolling document, so keep that going. If you haven't started that already, do so immediately. It's quite important. It's a kind of a pivot around which other things rotate. And of course, you have the final mentoring agreement review, which is the main purpose of my video today. How are the marks distributed? Well, a bit like this. The reflection and practice does get marks out of, if you see what I mean. The Viva is a set thing, so it counts for about a fifth of your marks. The portfolio has several different elements, but we don't mark the elements separately. We give you an accumulative total for the whole thing. So you can see it is the big ticket item, and most of the marks for this module, nearly half of them, are dedicated to that. The Viva, well, I say this about 3 or 4 times in this video, but sure, why not? It's a short presentation about progress and learning throughout the year, and it should really flow from the reflection on other portfolio elements. If you do the reflection of the portfolio well, you have all the material you need for the Viva. That's how it works. Guidance to follow. So let's get to the business in hand, completing the portfolio. You might have been getting bored with me now, waiting for this to happen, but we are very slowly getting there. So again, these are the portfolio elements. As I said before, green done, orange kind of in progress, index of evidence, and red things needing attention now. So initially, again, sorry for being annoying, but the document is set out as a template, and we've decided we don't need a midway review, really because things were kind of bunching up, and it would have been quite artificial to do a midway review and then very shortly afterwards a final one. So let's not do the midway one. I know 17 out of you have already done this, and there was a change in that we introduced the apprenticeship standards. Now, happily, you've been doing the apprenticeship standards, whether you realize it or not, and for every single one of your taught modules that you have submitted for already. But we're kind of trying to gather evidence in a number of different ways. There is a short film about this on professional standards. I've sent the link to the mentors. I will send that again. It's very technical, and I'm not too sure that delving really deep into that in the first year is going to be the best use of your time. That's why we have a tool so you can convert PCF to IATE, and the apprenticeship standards will become more important next year, but you are already gathering evidence by filling in your learning logs. So to get into the practice of aligning the PCF and IAT, sorry, and in particular for the index of evidence, you kind of need to start to understand how to do this. So we'll say a little bit about it. So you'll notice in the index of evidence, it suddenly has this new IATE column, all new, all improved, etc., etc. In order to do that, always start off with the PCF domains. There might be 1, 2, 3 here, for example. Then go and click on this link. In a later slide, it'll show you exactly where that's to be found in Canvas, and it will do the job for you. It's kind of like a conversion spreadsheet, really, for want of a better word. This is an overview of standards. You can see there's occupation summary, duties, so on, divided then into knowledge, skills, and behavior. There isn't an official way of translating these into each other. We did ask. So we've kind of had our own go at this. And there again is the link. It's in 4 sections. Really, the piece that's most practical for you is this. The thing that converts PCFs into KSBs, KSBs being knowledge, skills, and behavior from the IATE. Now, there's other things in it, but that's the most important page. And this is where you find it. This is the module document folder at the front of Canvas, and there's PCF IATE tracker, and that's the most recent and up-to-date version. So just use that. Going through all the standards and trying to work it out yourself would be quite a lot of work, and probably not where your energy would be best placed at the current time. Okay, let's do the final review process. Oh, it's the index of evidence again. Now, the index becomes quite important. Have I stressed that enough? And there is a video on Canvas about this. Now, you're thinking, Dermot, I'm watching a video. How do I do the links? I'll send you out slides so you'll be able to kind of find them. But they are all there. And you may not need to see that again. You have seen it already. But here we go. This is what the template looks like. Now, if you remember, it's the same document. You did an initial agreement. There was a review, not doing review anymore. And then scroll down and you'll find the final review process. The template will look like this on the first page. It'll have V2 November 24. And on we go. So, first of all, just reviewing what you've written so far. Are there any changes to that initial agreement? You'll have had some feedback on that in the main. I think 50, nearly everybody submitted a first agreement. So if there were feedback, etc., suggestions of changes, maybe now would be a good time to do that. A lot of people then went on to do the midway review, 17 of you in total. Not wasted work, because I kind of think you're a little bit ahead of the game and you could use particularly the narrative bits that you've done in the final review. A little bit of cutting, pasting and updating I think would be fine. But, there we are. You have information there already, and I think you can recycle and repurpose it. So let's then go to the final review bit at the end. This is what you will see. It'll have final review of first year of on-the-job learning. Each section is distinguished by, there's a little Kingston logo so you can tell where you are. Then there's 2 initial paragraphs, apprentices, brief narrative description of activity and learning from January to June. Well, in actual fact, you could do the whole year here if you want. Probably the best if you do that. But my guess is most of your learning has been in 2025, in the first part of your course, September to December 24. You're probably just getting used to everything, and you can comment about that briefly. But my guess is the learning is what happens in work, in the field, in practice. So pick out what kind of things were important for you, what really stood out for you. And I am also asking the mentors to make a similar comment. Now, for both of these, I don't need 27 pages, if you see what I mean, but I would like you to give a reasonably detailed account of that. I would suggest something like maybe 300 words would be pretty good if you could manage that. Once you get to those 2, you come to a section that looks like this little box here. And mainly for the midway reviews, people generally didn't do that. That's okay. Nobody told you what to do. And that's my kind of job today. So first of all, what level of the PCF? As we have stressed several times throughout the year, it's the readiness for direct practice level. And you can find that details about each level of the PCF on the BASWAL website. There's a link. As I said, you will get the slides and you'll be able to follow the link from there. So this is what the box looks like. Final summary written by mentor and apprentice. So you should be collaborating on this. Sometimes the mentor might write most of it, sometimes the apprentice. That's something for you two to work out. But I would prefer if mentors didn't tell apprentice that they have to do everything. It'd be nice if that was a negotiation and maybe a shared piece of, as we call it these days, co-production. This review should cover the whole of the first year, but my guess, as I said, a lot of the evidence is probably going to become from the second half. But with professionalism for the first one, you've been professional sometimes for many, many years. There should be little kind of stress or strain involved in finding the evidence and putting it in. But maybe a little bit more detail about what that looks like and what you should do is required. So here we go. So we'll have a paragraph here, a kind of a narrative, a story. Um, Professionalism is about things like turning up in time, being well prepared, how you present yourself in the agency, your understanding of social work, and your ability to kind of explain that to other people. So I'm sure that's not going to be too difficult. So let's have a little narrative paragraph here. That might be one, maybe 200 words, something of that nature. It doesn't have to be very long. The point is to capture the most important things. Now you'll notice that there are other elements in this. And what do I do with these things, Dermot? Well, the first one is, oh, look at that slide's there twice. This bit is the index of evidence references. So I'm going down the box and I'm kind of going, well, what's going to be there? Now, if you're keeping the index, there'll be a little column on the left-hand side and it's got TR or whatever the type of evidence is. TR is training, SUP is supervision. Now, you should number them so they're easy enough to find. But professionalism is particularly going to be fairly obvious, really, from supervision notes and things of that nature. So you might have, I don't know, you might have 4, 5, 6 little references like TR, SUP, etc. here in that section. And that's all it needs to be. So that when I look at this, when I'm marking them, I can go TR1, then I'll look at the index of evidence and I'll see what you've said there. And I go, oh yeah, that seems to fit. I know. Next bit. What? How good is the evidence? Now, my advice here is don't angst about this too much. You will be getting used to different people making judgments about the strength of evidence. If there was one or two things, I think, well, that might be just about satisfactory, or maybe it's limited. If there's 3 or 4 and they fit well, that's probably very good or better evidence for the first year. If there is no evidence, that's a bit problematic, and we might need a little bit of evidence planning. Or if there's no evidence, you might look through your index again and see, hang on, maybe that's not quite accurate. Maybe I haven't recorded all my index of evidence pieces against the right PCF. So a little bit of quick review might be in order, because I'd be quite surprised if there's no evidence for any of the PCF domains, to be honest. I can't really see how that might happen. So it's probably more an issue with recording of the evidence than the availability of it, if you see what I mean. Next bit, the IAT column. So you have professionalism here. So that's PCF1. You don't have to do anything with this. In IAT, use our spreadsheet. Cut and paste the little numbers that are against the various PCF elements and pop those numbers in here. That's really the easiest way to do that. Moving on. Oh, look, we're in a new PCF domain. We're now onto values and ethics. Now onto PCF2. And then progress through all 9 domains in a similar fashion, completing each element as you go. I hope that's fairly clear. Then there's a little section about an action plan. Now you can see there's many lines here, but really, once you've done all that review, it may be that there are certain things that are kind of, oh, I really need to know a bit more about this, or I would like more experience of this, whatever it happens to be. That's going to be quite personal to each individual apprentice. So talk to your mentor, maybe talk to your university tutor and see, what would be good to do a little bit of work on between now and the start of the academic year and now and the start of the CLE. Now, the CLE is contrasting learning experience, your first kind of placement in another team. They'll start at December at the earliest, and most people will start in January. You don't have to worry about that too much now, because you will have an opportunity to talk about that over the summer term with your university tutor and other people. And finally, there's a little box apprentices, reflections and comments on the review. Because when you've done all that, you're going to sit back and have a little think and think, what do I think of this overall? What are your reflections on it? Maybe positive, neutral, negative, whatever they may be. Most likely a combination of several different things. And I hope a sigh of relief that you've successfully completed your first year and done. Yay! Weak cheer for me. But genuinely, it's quite an achievement. Achievement to get on the course, an achievement to get through the course, and an achievement to get onto your second year. Okay, some very brief notes here about the other things, just on reflection and practice, because we've talked about that quite a lot recently. As I said, models can improve reflection, but they can also improve the structure of your work. The idea is to summarize learning for the first year, and people have done that in two ways, either as a general overview, that's fine, or a practice moment that captures the learning. Now, I sent out a little link last week and I uploaded 12 examples of forms of, actually 11 to take one out. So these are examples of exactly how other people have done it. I did say I would separate them out from the actual portfolios because it's a bit awkward looking at the portfolios, which are slightly different from what we're asking you to do this year. So have a little look. It may help you in kind of putting the final touches on those reflections in practice. There is guidance, criteria description, examples, all of those things. And update your reflection prior to the submission of the portfolio. My guess this week, I'm recording this on the 19th of May. You're probably fairly focused on the assignment you have to do for Monday, but perhaps after that, then you can pay attention to updating all of these things. Just as a general hint, the reflection on the final review are really what your Viva should be based on, because that's a summary really of what you've done during the year. We're not going to ask you to do live presentations on that, but we are going to ask that you submit a recording of your presentation on the 25th of June. So no live presentations. I'm sure some of you will be happy to hear that. And as I say, I'll send you a little bit more guidance for that. But by the time you come to do that, you will have done the work for it, really, to be honest. So in recent weeks, we've talked about changes, and then we went into reflections and index of evidence. That was mostly what we were talking about. Now it's time for the final review. It'll take you a little while to do that. As you can see, there are various elements, and you might want to sit down with your mentor and do a bit of work on it. Here's a little hint and tip. If you do sit down with your mentor and you make a list of things you should do, why don't you just do it live there and then while you're together? Have a laptop open and just enter details directly into those little boxes. You can tidy it up afterwards and add other things as they occur to you. So good luck with that. I look forward to seeing you again in class in the not too distant future. But for this particular presentation, I believe that is quite enough from me for one day. And it just remains for me to say bye. See you soon. Take care.